head into the famous, the G3, the goofy gun grabbers, the things that they say. Tim's baby.
All right. So we have quite a bit today. So we're going to try to move through these as quickly as possible. So, Doc, if you could throw up number 6 for me here. This is a guy that I follow on Twitter, and you can see by the little orange square that he's a Davy Hog anti-gunner. And he went on to say that today Republicans shot down 3 life-saving gun bills. Life-saving gun bills, folks. Hours later, there are reports of yet another mass shooting, this time at UNLV. And it seems that news is breaking today that it was actually a handgun use. So expect that narrative to go away if that's true.
Oh, yeah.
And then this could have been prevented, folks. This could have been prevented if these bills were passed. Sadly, Republicans serve the gun lobby, not the American people. That UNLV tragedy could have been prevented, folks, if they would have just passed these bills 3 hours earlier. This is the idiocy of the left. And it's so funny to see them, because I saw this. I saw Chris Murphy say something similar, but it could have been, well, just chose his words poorly, right? But then I found this one. No, it's a narrative. They're actually going with this. And here's the other thing that I found curious. So if just those 3 life-saving bills, folks, 3 life-saving bills could have changed the outcome. So what we're saying is the other 20,000 gun laws on the books didn't do it. But at 20,003, we've solved all the problems. We just need those 3 bills, folks.
That's the magic number. It's very astute, Tim.
Yeah.
That's very astute. I actually read your response tweet on that when I was scrolling through, because I saw that same thing. And I was like, ooh, Tim ate his Wheaties. That was a good one. Oh. And, something else that I would like to just bring forward, I think this is an important thing here. The reports of UNLV were a handgun, early reporting coming out, and this is just early reporting, so don't quote me on it. But reports are trickling out saying that there was a disgruntled behavior because of not getting a job, and a handgun was used. Well, the 3 life-saving bills that they amazingly forget to mention in here was an assault weapons ban. Well, that's not a handgun.
Not a handgun.
Universal background checks has nothing to do with something like this. And Ethan's Law, which has to do with safe storage of firearms. You tell me how those 3 items have anything to do with with just the basic details that we understand before this gets memory hold, and they just stop talking about it completely and start going on the next little parroted narrative of which they march in lockstep with.
Yep. That they absolutely do, and that's a great point to make, because it's these people are just so grimy. Every time I do the G3 segment, I immediately have to go take a shower afterwards. All right, so Doc, number 7. I just got to throw this up there because Chucky Schumer's out there flapping his gums again, and of course, every time he does, just like most anti-gunners, he says something incredibly dumb. So number 7, 11 years ago, next week, 20 innocent lives were cut short by an automatic weapon in Sandy Hook, and then he goes on, to expound on that. But I just want to focus on that first sentence. 11 years ago this week, 26 innocent lives were cut short by an automatic weapon in Sandy Hook. Now, what's missing from that statement? There's 2 problems with that one sentence, right? First of all, it was not an automatic weapon. That's a lie. Yeah. That's a purposeful lie to scare people. That is, it's just like when they go out there, there used to be video clips in the 90s of them saying, we have to ban these automatic weapons, and showing a machine gun being fired when they were coming for your semi-automatic rifles. This is a consistent narrative that's been used for decades to mislabel things, to use scary terminology to get you to surrender your rights. And then what does he not do? He doesn't mention the criminal. These children weren't killed by a criminal, folks. They were killed by an automatic weapon. It just jumped out of the bushes and got them. Nobody saw it coming. There was no criminal attached to that trigger. And that's why this will never be solved, because they don't want it solved. They continue to do this nonsense and post the silly narratives because they need the violence, because with that chaos, then they can push their narrative forward, which is exactly what he's doing in this tweet. They don't want to solve the problem. Right. You want to put solutions forward? We have, and you veto them. You shoot them down. That's like put security in schools. Well, you can't do that, because if it works, then we lose our narrative. We need the chaos so we can get the gun ban.
Right. And you just hit on something that I want to bring up in this segment, because you nailed it. And that's a very important point. One of the things that Chuck Schumer said, one of the things that Dick Durbin said, that we just saw Cory Booker say, he comes out and he says, just say one thing, and trying to paint Republicans as saying no all the time and not bringing anything forward. Republicans this year alone, we've covered it. They've talked about hardening school bills. Chris Murphy, the leader of the gun control movement in the Senate, ended debate on that instantly. Didn't even have a debate on it because he did it. That was on the gun control lobby. Then you had the mental health bills come forward. Same person killed it, squashed it. Chris Murphy. So you tell me, anybody watching this G3 segment, you tell me that they genuinely care about getting to the root of the problem when they are blocking any other bill other than the assault weapons ban, because that's what they want. And it's amazing, Tim. And I think you said it really well. If they needed a solution, they have it, but they need the problem to get their desired solution.
That's absolutely true.
That's a key point.
It's absolutely true. It's not something you can even refute at this point because we have so much evidence that that's exactly what they're doing. All right, so let's move on to the last one. I thought this one was interesting.
I like this one.
So this was really interesting. Now, this gun grabber has comments turned off, which is not surprising, but other people on social media were quoting him and making commentary. But when I read this tweet, I thought it was interesting, caused me to do just a little bit of digging. All right, so Abraham Lincoln, interesting choice of a name there. This is number 8, Doc. So no, I'm saying handguns aren't as lethal as AR-15s, which is why mass shooters almost always choose them and why gun advocates don't want to give them up. They work better than handguns for causing mass death. Now, a few things wrong with this right off the bat that I don't need to do research on to say that he's absolutely wrong. First of all, handguns are far more commonly used in shootings, mass shootings as they classify them, gang violence, things like that, whatever they classify as a mass shooting. Handguns are the vast majority of the firearms used. AR-15s account for less than 1%, a handful. So right there, just in that side of the debate, he's absolutely completely wrong, just making things up, right? He has no idea. Because he's propagandized. This is what the media wants him to believe, and this is what he believes.
Exactly right.
Okay. So then I started digging into it. Like, well, look, folks, I'm a hunter, and I've killed things with handguns. I've killed things with rifles, and yes, rifles are generally more powerful. That's why we have rifles. But I wondered, in real world statistics, are handguns truly less lethal than a rifle, or can you even measure something like that? So I tried to do some digging, and I came up with something that I found was interesting. And this comes from the American College of Surgeons from 2018. Doc, if you could put up number 9, this is a graph showing actual surgical events that took place to treat people with gunshot wounds, and it breaks down the type of firearm and the rough regional part of the body where the person was struck by a bullet. Okay. And if you go down this graph and take a look at it, the first thing you're going to notice is that handguns are almost always the most lethal weapon used when their doctors are trying to patch people up in the emergency room. Mm-hmm. Look at that. So you take a look at the head, handgun. I mean, who would have thought this? You brought this up. Like, really, a handgun shot to the head turns out being almost 60% lethal, 60% of the time, where a rifle isn't as deadly as a handgun and a shotgun. Right. But this boils down to shot placement. And this is why these types of statistics are hard to really say are scientific, right? Because the handgun rounds, handguns are smaller, easier to point, usually are used at very close distances. Therefore, you might be able to get a shot into the actual brain bucket. But with a rifle or a shotgun, you may hit the jaw or something like that, or graze them, and it wouldn't be a fatal wound, right? It's not saying that handguns are definitely more lethal. But what I'm pointing out here is that handguns are more frequently used. And according to this data, if you're shot in the head, chances are if it's by a handgun, you're probably not going to survive it. All right.
Right.
Then we go down to the neck. And this was interesting, but you would expect the neck to be more lethal. It's a very narrow area with lots of muscle and stuff like that. So the rifle winds up being more lethal than the handgun in those instances where they treated those wounds. But then we get into the chest. Look at that. Rifles and handguns running neck and neck with the handgun slightly edging it out. Now, multiple means multiple shots, which kind of throws it off. So I think they just included that just to show you that, if you get hit multiple times with the same weapon, the chances of the lethality goes up, right? Your chances of survival comes down. So then you take a look at shotgun. I mean, rifle and handgun outperforming shotgun, which is to the chest is crazy to me. I would think the shotgun would, right?
Right.
Move over to the abdomen. Shotgun, very lethal in the abdomen. So you move from the chest down to the abdomen, and look at that. It outdoes the handguns.
But handgun still beats rifles.
But
still
handgun
in the
still
abdomen.
beats rifle, right? Yes. So really, the only two places where rifles beat out handguns is in extremities and in the neck, right? So we get the last category, the extremities. If you take a look at like the Rittenhouse situation where the guy with the gun tried to shoot him and he shot him in the arm, and you saw it just basically open that arm up and make it completely useless. That was an AR-15 rifle round. That was hydrostatic shock on muscle. So you can see that when it comes to extremities, rifles and shotguns typically are more lethal than handguns. But look at the multiple hits, non-existent, because hitting an arm that's moving multiple times
Right.
can be quite difficult.
Very hard.
So
Very hard.
it was really interesting to see this. So just on its face, I mean, this was an interesting exercise, but based on actual data from doctors and surgeons, his assertion is false on that front as well. So
yeah,
interesting.
It is interesting. So like if I dive into this, I mean, like you said, we were talking about this pre-show, and we both had some interesting observations on this. But I think absolutely you are correct. When you're looking at this, you're looking at two things. One that is not measured. One thing that's not measured is the psychology and the observation. Maybe people see rifles coming. Maybe people don't see rifles. Maybe there's more distance. Maybe there's handguns are more concealed. There's lots. There's
so
lots
the
of
perpetrator
stuff
can
in
get
the
closer to
periphery.
you with a handgun because
Right,
it's more concealable.
right.
So many factors.
Yeah, there's lots of stuff in the periphery, right? But of the actual data that we're showing here, and this kind of speaks to your placement assertion here. If you look at the abdomen, so a shotgun is a massive amount of trauma. I mean, it is a very impactful event. You would think that a shotgun in a cranium would do more damage than a handgun. You would think that a shotgun in the chest would do more than a handgun, but you don't see that. But then when it comes to abdomen, see what that tells me is because there's so much stuff all like in your abdomen, so many important organs and all the different pieces of your system in the abdomen. The shotgun, because of the broad spectrum, it hits more placement.
Yeah.
It hits more important areas.
Yeah, I mean, being hit in the abdomen causes blood poisoning and stuff like that. You go septic and things like that because of where the hit is. And then again, it goes down to shot placement, folks. I mean, this is not, when you say the chest is a big area. Did one lung get hit or did two lungs get hit, across the chest cavity? I mean, there's so many different variables here, but just what I wanted to show with this chart is that just in collected data that we have access to, his assertion's wrong. Because and why is that important? Because they just make up the facts, folks. They just make it up. Whatever sounds good to them that bolsters their case, they make it up and they don't bring the receipts. We have to bring the receipts because we're defending our liberty, so we're always bringing the receipts. And they don't have to. They do everything based on emotion and lies.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it is heavily around manipulation, and I think that's one of my favorite things about doing the Second Legacy with you, Tim, is that we have more time because the format allows us to break these things down with more nuance, rather than just saying, "Hey, this is wrong because of this" at a very high level. We can actually break it down because we have 25 to 30 minutes, and I love that. That was a very good G3, sir.
Thank you.
Hat tip to you. Hat tip to the wise Tums munching man.
I'm not going to do it.
Nope,
I'm not bringing up the events of yesterday.
Don't do it.
All right.
Don't do it.
Folks, hope you enjoyed today's segment. Thank you for watching. We'll talk to you guys soon.